Today we are making some sauerkraut. We're going to learn some basics of fermenting today on Go-To Kitchen. So today we're going to learn the basics of fermenting and we're going to make some sauerkraut. And I am here with Nanette Auxiger. I said it right?
Yes, yes you did.
And Nanette is the author of Kaizen, and this recipe is actually in her book. So if you want a copy of this amazing little book, you need to go to her website, and this is how you spell it, nanetteauxiger.com. And you can buy her book right from her website and get this amazing recipe for and other tips about fermenting. So welcome, Nanette. Thank you for having us in your kitchen.
Well, thank you. Today we're going to do a El Salvadorian version of sauerkraut. It's called Curtido. And so we have cabbage. We're going to put in some salt. Salt helps it to where the bacteria doesn't go crazy, so you don't get mold and things like that. Cumin, some crushed red pepper, and some oregano. And if you don't happen to have any of these three spices, that's fine. You don't need to put them in there, but they do add a little kick.
Or even if you don't like them for some reason, if you don't like the flavors of one of those, then you can just leave it out.
And so for this, besides the cabbage, we do some carrots, some onion, and some jalapeno to add a little spice. And that's pretty much about the extent of Curtido.
So tell us why we ferment. Nanette does this a lot. She's all about the fermenting. So tell us why we actually ferment. Why is it good for us?
Fermenting adds the probiotics to it, and it breaks down the cabbage so that it's more easily digestible. So what it does is it makes all the vitamins and minerals that are in these vegetables more available for your digestive system to use.
So I just want to show you really quickly. We're just cutting this by hand. We're not putting it in a food processor or anything. And you can see how thin that Nanette is cutting this. So it's super thin. You can watch her here with a knife. Cabbage. And then Nanette and I were just talking about washing your vegetables before you put them into a jar to ferment. Because if you want to lightly wash them, that's great. But if you really, it's the bacteria that you're getting from when they grew the vegetables that's important. And another thing that will help create the bacteria those are really strong onions, as it starts to ferment, it's actually what's coming out of the ground on the vegetables that's helping the process. So you don't want to like go downtown and scrub them to death or wash them like you might if you're just going to eat them raw. And then the other important tip here is that you always want to try to find organic vegetables for this process because Nanette was telling me that it actually ups the ante on the pesticides when it's been fermenting for a while. So always try to stick with your organic vegetables, especially for fermenting. Okay, so we're done chopping. Here's my giant bowl. I should have brought more jars with me. It smells really good.
So one of the keys to fermenting is salt. Not too much, not too little. So what I like to start with is about half a tablespoon, and then I add from there. Because if you get too much, it won't ferment, and if you get too little, you could get mold. So this is kind of your key. So you just mix it in there. The way you're going to tell whether it's too much or too little is that once we mix it all together and pound it for a little bit, you taste it. It should have a slightly salty flavor, and then if you're at that point, then you're just right. Of course, you don't want to get too much because you can't really take away the salt. So that's why I add a little bit at a time. It'll end up being about 1 tablespoon and maybe a little more than that, but that's about the average for a container of Curtido or sauerkraut.
Okay.
But go slowly with it.
Okay.
And then for your spices, we're going to add some oregano. So I'm just going to pour some in here. I think it's about a half a teaspoon for the recipe. But again,
This is just dried oregano.
Yeah, with ferments, just add to your liking. And I love the smell of oregano.
So Nanette was saying that she, when she started fermenting, it was like a big science project, and she was kind of nervous about what she was doing. And, you know, am I going to end up with a bucket of mold, or am I going to end up with something that's actually fermented? And then as she made it more and more, this is the oregano, by the way, and as she made it more and more, then it became a much more relaxed, natural process for her. So
yeah, so get in and play with it. The first couple times will seem really weird, especially if you're not used to the idea of you're basically growing bacteria. That's kind of scary. You will know if it molds. I mean, it'll be really apparent on top. I've had some ferments that started to mold because I didn't have water covering the top of them, and that's one of the keys besides the salt to keep them from molding.
I need to put a little in mine.
I just took off the top layer where the mold was, recovered it with liquid, and put it back in the cabinet, and it turned out beautifully. So you don't necessarily need to be afraid of mold. You just want to keep an eye on your ferments and make sure that the water's covering them, and if it's not totally covering them, take off that top layer and make sure the water does cover them.
Okay, good tip.
So this is cumin. Again, it's another one of those things you don't need to put in if you don't want to. These are cumin seeds.
Okay.
And I just put a little bit into it just gives it a nice little twinge to it.
I think I'm going to go do just a little bit more because I really like cumin. It's like one of my favorite things. All right.
And then we had jalapenos in here, but I also put a little bit of crushed red pepper. And again, it's to whatever your liking is, because if you don't like spicy, then you're not going to want the red pepper, but I happen to like spicy. So it's about a teaspoon is about the max that you want to put into it. Now that we've added the salt, we need to pound it so that the vegetables start releasing their liquid. As you'll see here, there's some liquid in here. I've added a little bit of water, but some of that is vegetable liquid. So you want them to release as much as they can, and then you top it off with spring water or distilled water to make sure that the vegetables are covered.
Okay, let me see that because I want to just make sure everybody sees that. I can't tilt it so much, so I'll do that so you can see that they're covered in there. Okay, and this is one that's been in the dark
been in the cabinet for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
It's ready to eat now. I happen to like my ferments to go for 4 to 6 weeks, but you can try them as you go. After about a week, they're ready to eat.
Okay.
But of course, the longer that you ferment them, the more the vegetables break down and are more bioavailable to you.
Okay.
So if you can let it last that long in your cabinet before you start munching on it, then give it a try and see. Again, try it once a week to make sure that it's not ready for your liking.
Okay, so how do we pound? I'm gonna let you do it so I don't shake the camera to death.
I just take a wooden spoon. You can get in there with your hands if you like. It can be very therapeutic. Even the wooden spoon's therapeutic, but I just get in there and mash it up. And this is why you don't need to break up the cabbage too much, because you're going to pound it. So it's going to get broken up into smaller pieces.
Okay, so we're going to both pound these, and then I'll be back and show you what it looks like after we have pounded it out. Okay, so we have pounded away. Pound, 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 pound. Shaking the camera. Pound, 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 pound. We were saying that if you have, like, you know, if you're having a bad day, you should make some kraut, because you get to pound away at it and it's good therapy. It's actually kind of a workout too. So, and it's messy. I got it everywhere. It was flying everywhere like crazy. And also a good project for your kids to help you. You know, they probably don't, younger kids especially, you don't want them like chopping up the vegetables, but they could do this part really easy. So you want it till it's a little bit glossy, and I don't think you can see that. But
so if it starts sweating, so you'll be able to tell that it's kind of got like liquid on it and has started sweating. There's like some water to that.
Okay. Okay. So now what do we do?
So we get a jar, and I'm going to tell you, wide mouth jar is the best, because you've got to be able to get your hand or a spoon into it to start filling it.
I just scored like 7 of these at the thrift store for 49 cents a piece. So if you don't want to just go out and buy jars, you can go to the thrift store and just keep an eye out. They're there all the time, and they were super clean and ready to go. So, I mean, I washed them, but anyway, yeah. Okay.
So then I just start either filling it with the spoon or your hand or whatever you would like to get it full.
I'm left-handed, so we're gonna combat over here.
And then after I get so much into my jar, again, pounding. You don't want a lot of air pockets, so you want to get it in there as tight as you possibly can.
You see what she's doing there?
I'm pounding it down. So you saw earlier it was full, and now look at it. It's all like tight in there. You want it tight.
Okay. Okay, so I mean, amazingly enough, I had like the perfect amount for these 3 jars, and I was thinking there's no way I'm going to need more jars, or I was thinking I was going to need more jars, that this would overfill these 3, but it is not. So one thing I learned here that's important, you want a little bit of room at the top, so don't fill it up all the way. Don't like make it up, because you want a little room for the liquids at the top. So okay, so what's next?
So again, the liquid at the top is extremely important because that helps your vegetables to not mold. It keeps them in.
See how that one has the liquid at the top?
It keeps them in a state of perfect, I guess acidity, I guess would be the word for it. So this one that you were looking at has a rock in it. I use a river rock to keep my vegetables down, but you can also use a leaf from your cabbage to keep them down. Other people put in like broken chopsticks in an X in there to keep their vegetables down, but the idea is to keep them below the liquid. And so for this one, I'll show you how to use the cabbage. So I just make sure that I get all my vegetables in there, get them all packed down, use your hands, it's fine.
Okay.
So then I'm just gonna tear off a piece of the cabbage, and then you just kind of mold it down in there to where it's keeping your vegetables down. And then we're gonna make sure that there's plenty of liquid in there. Right now it's starting to form at the bottom, but we're gonna want a little bit more in there. So I'm gonna let it sit overnight on the counter, wait to see how much liquid the vegetables produce. And then I'm going to add a little bit of distilled or spring water. You don't want to.
And there you go. My name is Leslie. This is Go-To Kitchens. Thank you so much for watching. I have been here with Nanette Augsziger, and you go find Nanette's website, nanetteaugsziger.com. It'll come up on the screen there. And then go buy her book if you want more fermenting recipes. All the things that she mentioned, she has in her book. And a lot of other great content that I've learned a lot from. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to, you can reach out to us on Facebook. Just find us, gotokitchens.com. You can also find our website. Everything is gotokitchens.com except for the email, which is talktothehands@gotokitchens.com. And now you can see us on Periscope. Lunch with Leslie, weekdays, every weekday at noon Mountain Standard Time. Thanks so much for watching. You guys go ferment something. Thanks for watching again. Ask me, chat with me, hang out with me, learn with me, pen me, gotokitchens.com.